Hello, my name is Bob and I'm a tutor at Raritan Valley Community College's Academic Support Center. This is the fourth of our podcast sessions and this one's on GeoGebra. This is the second module in the GeoGebra series and we're going to talk about graphing points. In this session we're going to learn how to turn the grid on the drawing pad. Then we're going to use the point tool to graph a point. We're going to learn to use the input bar to graph another point. We're going to learn a little bit about the syntax for graphing points. We're going to learn to adjust the properties of a point. And for our advanced math students, we're going to look at how to put in a point in polar coordinates. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is launch GeoGebra. So I'm going to go over here and double left click on the GeoGebra icon and then I'll get GeoGebra started. Once GeoGebra comes up, I'm going to maximize the window and now I'm going to do a right click anywhere in the drawing area. And when I do a right click, you can see that this little options pad comes up. You can see the word grid there. What I'm going to do is move down to the grid. I'm going to do a left click on grid, and now you can see that the grid lines have come on in. So now for our first problem, let's try graphing the point 3, 2 using the point tool. And the point tool is right up here, and we're going to click on it. And you can see when we clicked on the point tool, the word new point came on. That means anywhere when we click on this graph, a new point will show up. Now our point was x value of 3 and y value of 2, and the point 3, 2 is right there. You can see the cursor's put at 3, 2 there, and what I'm going to do is do a left click, and you can see that the point A has been assigned at the value 3, 2. Notice over here in the algebra window that the point A 3, 2 was also installed at the same time. Now if we wanted to install a second point, what we would do is click on that point. Suppose we wanted the point 5 in the x value, 1. We would go up to 5, 1, and we would click again, and you can see that point B has been assigned. As long as we have this new point tool turned on every time we'll click, we'll get a new point. So we'll go back up to the move arrow, which is the arrow in the left-hand corner, and click on that to turn the point tool off. Now, suppose we wanted to put in the point -1, 5. And we're going to call that point C, and we're going to put it in. Now this time we're going to use the input bar down below here. So what we're going to do is click on the input bar, and when I did a left click there, I'm going to type capital C and then a colon. And then I'm going to put a space in and then parentheses -1, 5 and a closing parentheses, and then I hit enter, and you can see first off that in the algebra window the point C -1, 5 came up, and you can also see that the point went onto the graph. Now a couple of things that I did there. One is I put in a capital C. Points are denoted by capital letters, and so that's why I used the capital C. The other thing is I put a comma between the -1 and the 5. The comma denotes that we're going to use XY coordinates as opposed to polar coordinates, what we're going to talk about later for our calculus students. And also notice that we use the parentheses as opposed to the square brackets. Parentheses are used for points. Now we're going to input the point 5 - 2, and we're going to give that point a name. We're going to call that point dog. So we're going to call it capital D, O, G. And what we're going to do is use dog equals, and in parentheses, 5, -2, closing parentheses, and hit enter again. And you can see that we put the point dog on the graph. There it is right there. I'm going circling around it. And you can see that the point dog is also put up there in the algebra window. The reason I did this was to let you know that points can be assigned names. They don't just have to be single letters. But once again, that name must start with a capital letter. Now, let's go and adjust the point D, dog, on the property box. I'm going to right-click on dog over in the algebra window. And you can see that we get some boxes to show up. These are the property boxes. And there are several things that we can do here. We can show the object or not show the object. If I click on that arrow, notice that the point disappeared from the graphing pad, from the drawing pad, but it's still here over in the algebra window. If I do a right click on it again at point dog and click again, it comes back. Do a right click over here and I can also turn the label on and off, or I can go down here to properties and we can change lots of different things about it. First off, if we wanted to, you can change them from a name to a name and a value, or just a value. Let's put the value up there for dog. We can also change the color of the point. It's blue right now. We could make it red if we wanted to. We could change the style of the point, and the higher the number, the bigger the point. We'll go all the way up to 9. And let's click close, and you can see all of a sudden that the point dog now has the coordinates by it. It's got a big red circle around it, and you can see when we roll over top of it, it's got that highlighted. Now, what are the other things that we can do here? Well, for our calculus and pre-calculus student, it will allow us to input points in polar coordinates. So let's put in the point E, and we're going to type capital E, because it's a point again, colon, I'm going to put a space there, and I'm going to have parentheses, 5, comma, 45, and I want 45 degrees, all right? And so I'm going to go back here, and over here in the degree window, that little tiny thing that you can't make out is a degree sign. And if I hit degrees, click on degrees, and those are left clicks, and then a closing parentheses, and when I hit the enter key, I get a window. Now that's not where I expected it to be. What happened? Well, for polar coordinates, you need to input them with a semicolon instead of a comma. So we're going to go back to point E and do a right click on it, and what we're going to go back in here is redefine it. And you can see there's our 5 comma 45 degrees, and what we're going to do is we're going to change that to a semicolon. We're going to get rid of that 0.579 because I'm not sure where that came from. We're going to put in 45. We're going to click on our degree symbol again, apply it, and now you can see that E has come out here and it's at 45 degrees. But if you notice over here on the algebra window, it's showing the Cartesian coordinates for that. So let's go over here on the algebra window and do a right click again, and we'll go down to where it says polar coordinates, and we'll click there, and now you can see it's our 5 comma 45 degrees. Now suppose that we wanted to put in something in radians. Suppose we wanted to point 3 and pi over 6 radians. Well, we go down here, we're going to call this point F colon, and we're going to put in a parentheses, and then we want 3 semicolon, and this time we wanted pi over 6. Well, where do we get the pi? Well, we have Greek letters over here, so we're going to hit the drop down box, and we're going to scroll down until we can find our pi, and there it is. We're going to click on pi, and we've selected pi, and it's now in our input window. We wanted pi divided by 6, but GeoGebra is going to assume that we mean degrees unless we tell it otherwise. So we're going to type in the word RAD for radians, and there the point comes up. All right, so there's point F. Notice, though, it converted the radians to degrees. So pi over 6 is 30 degrees. There is no way that I've found to get GeoGebra to show the radians on the algebra screen. But know that that is really what we've got. Now the last point we're going to put in is point G. And this time we're going to call it G equals, G equals, and what we're going to put in is parentheses 2 semicolon, and this time we're going to type in the word pi. And pi is a keyword, so we could use pi divided by 3 space RAD closing paren, and there we get G at G2 comma 60 degrees. Alright, so let's review what we did in this module. First, we learned how to turn the grid on in a drawing pad by doing a right click on the drawing pad. Then we used the point tool to put a point on a graph, and we learned that we could put multiple points on until we clicked on the move arrow. Then we used the input bar to put on several points in the graph. We learned a little bit about the syntax for a point, particularly that points start with capital letters, that we can use a variable for a point like the word dog, but it must start with a capital letter. If we separate the two values with a comma, Then the syntax is for Cartesian or XY coordinates, and if we separate the two numbers with a semicolon, then we're going to use polar coordinates. And we learned how to adjust the properties of the point. So this concludes our second module on GeoGebra.